But anyway, so what made you take the decision to go public with this?
It was because I saw a lot of stories. A lot of people were responding in the private Facebook landlords group saying that they've experienced something similar. Or I saw the stories from other people who dealt with these exact squatters. And they said, and just hearing all these stories made me think, and nobody's doing anything about it? Like, I just couldn't believe that this really obvious criminal behavior was going on with no repercussions whatsoever. And I did call the police multiple times, and I tried to make a complaint about theft and fraud and false pretenses. I mean, they lied on their application, they faked their references. I also reported that one of them gave me death threats, once in July and once at the hearing in September.
Jesus.
And
Whoa.
Yeah,
I feel like
it's like you
glossed
guys
over
just
that.
flew over that.
yeah, so I mean, I don't know. Can I swear on this?
Yeah.
If you need to, yeah. I mean, so like following the
quote.
Form K, and they're like, "I'm not seeing you in court." They were like, so you guys are fighting like over text all the time, or what?
We were basically fighting over text for a while. Like at first, it started off, pretty friendly, and I was like, "What's going on with the rent? Do you need more time? When can you get this to me?" But when I did end up filing the Form J, and that was when I served them for the hearing in September. So remember, they had told me to do the Form K.
Yeah.
But I did the Form J.
But not the one where we pays the money.
Yeah.
When I filed the Form J, and I went and I served them, the woman came out of her apartment. So I just taped it to the door, but the dog was barking at the door, and the woman came out of the apartment, and she saw the Form J attached to the door, and that's when she screamed, "Are you kidding me? Give me a break. I'm going to kill you." And I was like, I had turned and I was running down the hall at this point, but she screamed that at me. And I called the police right away, and it was basically dismissed in terms of like, oh, your back was turned, and you don't know, maybe she was saying it to somebody else, and people say a lot of things in anger, and so some. I called a few times about this, and somebody told me, well, did she say when or how she was going to kill you? Because
it has to be more specific.
It has to be more specific.
Yep.
So, like, basically, it doesn't matter, apparently, if somebody gives you a death threat unless they're telling you, I'm going to kill you with a candlestick in the dining room at 6 o'clock.
Yeah.
Like,
I've similar situations. Someone's
I'll see you
someone's
there.
like, I know who you are and I know what car you drive and I'm going to burn this place to the ground. And they're like, saying they know what car you drive, like, doesn't really, it's an implied threat, but it's not an actual threat. I'm like, anyway, so, well, then tell me a bit about, so you decide to go public, and I understand why, and you've got more guts than we do, because, we just don't want the public
You should
ire.
encourage more people to go public.
They should,
Before you go to the next, what was the process of doing that? Like, I feel like a lot of people don't even know. Like, I've never really considered it in my head of like even touching base with the news or anything. Was it a difficult thing to get a hold of somebody that was interested in taking on the story?
I reached out to, a few people told me who to reach out to. So I reached out to specific people and got a reply a couple weeks later. And there was a CBC reporter who was interested. And she actually told me that she would love to publish more landlord stories, but a lot of landlords don't want to talk about this stuff. So they tend to publish tenant stories. So people hate on CBC because they say CBC is really pro-tenant and biased towards a tenant. And maybe that's true, but I also think that based on what the reporter was telling me, landlords are just scared to go to the media. They're scared to get hate. And I think landlords have a lot more to lose than tenants.
Yeah.
And so tenants are happy to go to the media and just complain and lie, and it doesn't really matter. But landlords have a reputation to try to protect. So anyway, so I spoke with her because, like I said, I was surprised that this has been happening so much, and I wanted to see something be done about it. And from like a political standpoint, like I made a petition about seeing some change in the residential tenancy board and the way that the act is enforced. And the media was there to kind of help progress the story.
Yeah. So tell me about the Section 23 summary conviction and the $1,000 fine that you kind of unearthed in the tenancy board legislation.
I was reading through the Residential Tenancy Act because I wanted to make sure that I wasn't breaking the law, because I found out that things that kind of make sense to me are apparently against the law. For example, you can't turn off the utilities if somebody refuses to pay their rent, which to me makes sense. It's like, if they're not paying anything, why should I have to pay to maintain utilities for them?
How can I pay those things?
Exactly,
That was the position I was in. I was like, I don't even have the money to pay these bills when I had the first place.
Yeah, exactly. Like my line of credit debt was going up. Like, why am I supposed to be paying things for people who are refusing to pay me?
Yeah.
That's against the law. So there are a lot of things that are against the law. So I was reading the act and trying to make sure that whatever I do, that I follow the law. And that's when I found this fine that says that if people are breaking the act in some kind of way or retaliating against someone in some kind of way, that they are subject to a fine of up to $1,000. And so I thought, okay, let's pursue this. So I called the police and I said, how do I go about doing this? And they said, oh, we don't touch residential tenancies. So I called the Residential Tenancy Board and they said, oh, we don't enforce that. Call the police or the courts.
Yep.
So I called the courts, and the courts had no idea what I was talking about. And and ultimately it turns out there's apparently, according to the investigation CBC did, this fine has never been enforced.
Yeah, and I think it went back to like 1991.
Yeah.
And it's never been enforced one single time.
Yeah.
It's just like, that.
What the rules of the act have been broken 3 million.
That like the two Spider-Mans just pointing at each other.
Yeah, exactly.
That is the tenancy board and the police, because this is supposed to be something like, no, a summary conviction is the law, like police enforced law.
Yeah.
Which, is what allows it to maybe step outside of the tenancy board and the tenancy resolution situation. Like, okay, this is a police issued fine, potentially, a conviction and fine that could go through that avenue. And honestly, and I can understand the police being like, you know what, we can't spend our time resolving every tenant dispute. So they wash their hands of it. But this is something that should be on their radar. And then, of course, because it does fall under their jurisdiction, the tenancy board has the escape of being like, well, it's not our thing. It's like, well, it's no one's thing.
Yeah, it's no one's thing.
Zero accountability whatsoever. But what's really interesting, ever since they changed all these tenancy laws, you hear a lot of landlords getting slapped with fines. Rightfully so.
Very quickly. They wanted to make note, yeah.
There was one where people lied about saying they needed to move into a unit to get occupancy when they didn't.
Yeah.
They got slapped with like $5,000 or $6,000 fine, if I remember correctly.
Wow.
There was another one where someone did something wrong. It was like $9,000 or $10,000.
Yeah, I
like
saw those.
People are getting slapped. Like the landlords all of a sudden are getting slapped with fines, quite quickly and rightfully so.
It leans towards tenant rights more than landlord rights, because we have a similar thing for landlords, and there's 1991 since the last one, or if it was ever done.
Also, like, they get the money. Right, like I don't know how they enforce those fines, but they're from people who will pay them and probably feel the consequence more of having to pay them in the sense that, like, if they don't pay them, that affects their day-to-day life, where some people are like, I don't pay anything, and it doesn't seem to affect anything.
They don't quit their job to avoid it.
Having good credit is important to me. Like, if I owe somebody money, I have to pay what I owe because I want to keep my good credit. But, people like my squatters, they don't care about their credit because it doesn't matter. Exactly. They don't care about their job. They will quit their job if you try to take a penny of their money.
Oh my God, I love that part of the story. That might be my favorite part of the story.
Yeah, and I heard that that's not an isolated case. Like, I've talked to their previous landlords, and they're like, oh no, that is what they do. They quit their jobs every time.
Yeah, well, because then they'll know, like, they'll go get another job, like, find
exactly.
me out.
Yeah.
Like, and are you going to pay the sheriff another $200, right? Like, each time.
Yeah.
Man, you almost respect the hustle in a weird twisted way. So
when I was broke, I had rich habits. When I was broke, I had rich habits.